Good morning, friends. And I must tell you that being here feels very special, but also, very, let me put it this way. We don't feel like visitors here. We feel like guests, like house guests, because NASDAQ has really been, to a very great extent, Israel's second home. And for some companies, maybe even first home. And I think this incredible citadel of excellence that NASDAQ is truly a wonderful friend of Israel. And the fact that we're here today with NASDAQ declaring November 17th, Israel Day, and having us do the bell ceremony and then have this conference is a sign of the very, very close relations that are in part also thanks to the efforts, the goodwill, and the friendship of Ammon Neubach, who is with us today, and is the former chairman of the Tel-Aviv Stock Exchange. So we are very proud to be here. We're very proud of what Israel has achieved and is achieving, especially in technology. And we hope it will continue. I'll tell you a secret. I was slightly disappointed at the bell ringing ceremony because I thought we were there not to press the bell, but to choose the stocks we want to invest in. But I can promise you that with the luck we usually bring from Israel, the screens are going to be totally green today. So thank you for being with us. I would also like to recognize a very special guest we have, Ambassador Asaf Zamir, who is the newly appointed Consul General of Israel, and is another proof of how important New York is to Israel, because we do send you the very best we have. So welcome and good luck, Asaf. And I would now like to introduce to you a truly very, very special person, and that is Reuven Rivlin, the 10th President of Israel, who has honored us with his presence, and it is truly a great honor. Rivlin is, he's done something in Israel which is very unusual, and I think also the business people around here will appreciate that. Israel is a place where it's very, very difficult to achieve consensus on anything. Between Israelis, between Jews, consensus is not always very easy to achieve. Rivlin created the consensus by becoming possibly one of the most respected, and even more than that, loved presidents. And that's after being a politician for many years and holding every possible post in Israel, ranging from member of parliament, minister, speaker of the Knesset, and ultimately president of Israel. To be so respected and so loved after all these years is indeed an incredible achievement. And another thing which I'm sure the president may allude to is that he's also become a techie. And he's become chairman of a very promising and exciting Israeli tech company, which maybe he'll tell you more about. So it is with great pleasure, my true honor, to introduce to you President Rivlin. Thank you.
Before saying my words, I would like to tell you that when I was the speaker of the Israeli Knesset, President Peres, the 9th president of Israel, applied to me saying, Mr. Rivlin, Mr. Speaker, what are we going to do? Every lecture, every gathering, every meeting, we have to start and to really mention everyone who is important. And fortunately, whenever we have any kind of a meeting, everyone is important. So I said to him, well, Mr. President, we will decide now in the Knesset that you will say, that I will say, dear President, Honorable President Peres, and all the other guests. And here today, we have the Consul, we have the head of the AIFL. Something happened here. Okay. And we have, of course, the Israeli ambassador, former ambassador to the United Nations, Dan Gillerman, who is very much involved with all those matters going on between Israel and the United States. And I would say now, AIFL President Jonathan Barsade, and Israel Board Chairman Ambassador Danny Gillerman. I will mention you, my dear young friend. When you're 82, everyone is young, the other one. Yeah, I thought I'm 28. Because of that, I jumped at the Grand Valley, and that's what happened, you know. And now I would like to say to all of you, really, it is a real honor and pleasure to be along with you. So, all distinguished guests, Israel, that has always been a land of inspiration, is also today the land of innovation. And when we talk about innovation and we look at the Israeli companies, and many of you are here, and Israeli-born technologies trading on the NASDAQ today, we see many, many companies that are working in order to find answers to the great question of today. Not great one question, but great questions. Because in Israel, we always have questions, and also we have answers. And also we can argue. If we don't have somebody to argue about, we can argue with ourselves. But the questions that are standing in front of the agenda of every one of us, how we communicate, simply communicate, how we keep ourselves and our information safe, and how we can help to treat illness and diseases, how we can feed more people, and how we can look after the environment. And it's very important. And many startups companies which asked me to be the foreign affairs minister, along with the American administration and Vice President Al Gore at the time, that want us to be very much involved in order to become a model for the whole world, in order to fight the terrible situation of what is going on with the environment all over the world. And we can look after the environment. I am not just proud. I'm not just proud of how much cooperation and partnership there is between Israeli and American companies and investors. I'm also proud of what so many are doing to promote a better world for today and for our children and grandchildren for tomorrow. As former president of the State of Israel, and in Israel, once a president, always a president, it's only, you know, something that you say. In America, you mean that, because I'm going to meet this afternoon and to get a real honorable medal with the 43rd president of the United States, President Bush, the son. And we are all together doing our best in order to cooperate. But in Israel, I'm cooperating with all those matters with the Americans and with the American administration, not as the 10th president of Israel, which is very, very important to become a president in Israel, although I wanted always, Mr. Zamir also wanted to, and he has a chance to do it, I really wanted to replace Teddy Kollek at the time. But politicians didn't let me do my really desire to become the mayor of Jerusalem. So I became the president of Israel. As former president of the State of Israel, people often ask me how Israel produced so many startups. I want to tell you the secret. For Israel, Israel necessities was always an engine. Every challenge that we had, we really related to every challenge as an opportunity because of the needs of Israel to secure itself, to build an economy, to absorb so many people who came from 70 different diasporas. For Israel, as I've said, the innovation and of course, with an engine of innovation, there is a reason for Israel as a vibrant and strong democracy, and we have democracy also in ideas. We have democracies also in ideas. The startup dream is open to all. And if at first, and I know many of you for many years, and if at first you do not succeed, we say, try again. And even once again, try again. And we try. This dedication to excellence and so really shared values, and to really be with the idea that we have to keep our shared values for all of us. And I'm so very proud to be here today, to be here today at NASDAQ and to ring the bell. May it bring us all success. I know many of you from Israel. We have really a lot that we have done in several fields of the Israeli environment and the Israeli societies. I bless all of you, and I would like only to say to all our partners in the United States, the Foreign Affairs Principles of Israel stands, Mr. Consul, the General Consul in New York, stands on three really substantial values. The first one is, of course, the relationship with the United States, obvious. Second one, but not less important, are the relationship with the United States. And last but not least, are the relationship with the United States. Thank you all for coming here. Thank you, and God bless you, and have a lot of success.
Hi, Randy. Wonderful to see you. Wonderful.
You can sit. We're just going to say goodbye.
Okay, great. Of course.
Do stuff.
Right. As you can see, the president had to leave us, but thank you. Thank you for your warm words. And we're now going to continue with the program. Just a very small remark to all the following speakers. Watch your words very carefully, because we have here representatives of Israel's major economic newspaper, Kalkalist, headed by its publisher, Yoel Esteron, and Galit, and other members. They've just had an incredibly successful Mind the Tech conference in New York yesterday. And so all I'm saying is that, you know, I expect everybody to say very wise words, but take into account that they may be published, and make the most of them. Anyway, good luck to everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hi. Oh, it's working. Good morning, everyone. We'll do the welcoming remarks after this fireside chat. We have today the honor of having Randi Zuckerberg with us today. Thank you, Randi, for joining.
Thank you. What a pleasure. This is my first live event after almost 2 years. So amazing. Wow. And I hope that, am I spoiled? Every event we're going to be let off by the president.
Yeah, you start from the top.
That's right.
So we have the great honor of having Randi Zuckerberg, an entrepreneur, an investor, co-founder and general partner of Surround Ventures, best-selling author, award-winning producer, and founder and CEO of Zuckerberg Media. Also first of the first employees at Facebook, where you were the creator of Facebook Live. You currently host a weekly tech, and basically after this Fireside Chat, you are going live, right?
Yes.
It's your show, Sirius XM. And we have Randi and talking today with us here. And because this day is mainly about the ties between Israel and New York and strong tech ecosystem that we have in both ecosystems, we'd like to ask Randi, you're doing so many things. Why you decide also to become an investor and to found Surround Ventures, in addition to all the great things that you are doing?
Thank you. Well, first of all, it's such an honor to be part of such an exciting day like today, and congratulations to everyone who made this day happen.
Thank you.
It's interesting because I feel like even though so much of my career has been in technology that's always so forward thinking and what's coming next and what's 10 years in the future, my Jewish identity and connection to Israel has really grounded me in the opportunity to always understand and focus on the past in order to know where you're going. And I think that's something that for me as a tech executive has always been so important. So about almost a decade ago now, I led a group of tech CEOs and executives like Birthright for CEOs to Israel. And the one thing that I really wanted a lasting connection with the country, because so many times you travel and you love it while you're there, and then the memories fade when you come home. And so the stipulation was we would cover all the costs of the trip, but everyone had to make at least one angel investment in a company they met in Israel while they were there, so that they would come home and have a connection to the land and to a business, because that's what will keep you connected for years and years, establishing a business relationship. And it was magical what we saw. The executives, no one just invested in one company. People came back with portfolios and connections. And so when my business partner, Jared, who's sitting there, came to me with the idea, Jared Cash, who of establishing a venture fund that would help really foster that connection between Silicon Valley and New York and Israel, and helping Israeli companies grow into the United States, a lot very similar to the amazing work you're doing. I jumped at the opportunity.
Amazing. And how many can you give one example of one investment that you did in Surround Ventures?
Yes, sure. So we're a very new fund. It's interesting to raise a fund during the pandemic was very interesting. But we've had some great outcomes so far. IMGN Media, one of our first investments, was acquired by Warner even while we were still raising the fund, which was very exciting. And we've had a great start, and we've had some great investments in defense and I have so many, but mostly entertainment, media, and commerce.
Great. These days we see like so many startups and so many money in the market that are looking to be invested. How do you see the evolving competitive landscape over the best startups, and what is unique in your opinion in Israeli entrepreneurs?
Yes, well, there's so much that's exciting. And, I've always gone to Israel as kind of the sister of Silicon Valley, the pace of innovation, the resourcefulness. In agriculture and defense and mobile and healthcare, it's really just second to none with the innovation. So, but I think there are a lot of issues when you're in a small city where everyone's thinking the same, just like we have in Silicon Valley. It's hard to expand out of that. And especially, the US consumer has a lot of similarities, but a lot of huge differences. And so I think there are so many amazing entrepreneurs in Israel who just need a little help from people who understand how to grow and scale a company with a US consumer.
Right. Nice. We are dealing today from Tel Aviv to NASDAQ, and today we are at NASDAQ, and there were so many Israeli companies that went for an IPO in the last 12 months, I would say. Even today, there's so many companies that are going public, become unicorns, and they're getting bigger and bigger. What do you think that the current situation in the market will continue, where we will see that the valuations of the startups are getting higher, almost like it's crazy to see the numbers compared to even to a year ago. And how do you see it? Do you see this? If it will continue, will stop? What do you view on that?
It's definitely wild right now. I mean, if I get pitched one more company that's pre-revenue, but raising at 100x their proposed valuation, my brain might explode. So, listen, there are many smarter people about finance in this room than I am to predict what's going to happen with the market. I think we're definitely headed for some sort of a correction this year, but what has excited me is all of the different types of vehicles, whether that's, the explosion in the SPAC market, the public market, equity crowdfunding. There's so many interesting ways for companies to raise money and go to new markets now. So crypto, it's pretty wild what's happening.
Yes, I agree. We see every day a new a new thing that we didn't expect, to see that in the past. But
that's right. So I will appreciate how wonderful the market is doing while we're in it.
Exactly. And also, if we're talking about Israeli startups, only in New York, there are 350 Israeli startups, and 35 of them were founded by women.
Yes.
And it's like 10%.
That's higher than out in Silicon Valley, but still, we need a lot of work to be done. Silicon Valley,
I think, and around the world, and also in Israel, it's like around 8%. So 10%, it's kind of a little bit better than other places. Yeah. And I know that you are involving in many initiatives that is promoting women. Yeah. And how do you see, your view on how to get more women into tech?
It's a great question. That's one way to wake everyone up. All right. I guess I'll have to use my theater projection voice at the mic's back. Promoting women and girls in STEM and technology has always been so important to me. I'm so proud in Surround Ventures that our portfolio is over 30% female. I want it to be closer to 50% female, but 30% is, when you consider that it's something like 2 to 5% of venture capital financing goes to female-led companies. I'm proud of where we are right now and the direction we're heading. I think it starts really early. That's actually why I got into children's books. I have no business writing children's books, but my research showed that it is at 8 and 9 years old that we start losing girls in technology and STEM.
Wow,
and
early.
So very early, it's sometime around 3rd, 4th grade that girls start saying, oh, that's for boys, or I'm not good at this.
We have to invest the efforts at that age.
We are losing future entrepreneurs before they even know that they can be entrepreneurs. And so for me, that's something that I've really doubled down a lot in my career in investing in, not only in helping support current female entrepreneurs, but the next generation.
Good luck. It's an important mission.
Thank you.
You wrote a few books. You have a show. You are an investor. You are a producer. What are you most passionate about?
Being a Jewish mom is what I'm most passionate about. I know I saw the president leaving and I was like, I hope he has hand sanitizer from all those hands he's shaking. Like, that's what a Jewish mom I am. But I'm deeply passionate. I have 5 shows on Broadway that I'm producing right now here in New York. So I hope anyone who's visiting has a chance to partake in the theater. The arts has always been something that I'm deeply passionate about. And because I think you can tell difficult stories and bridge divides in how people think through the arts. There have been so many incredible Tony winning shows lately about Israel and the connection to Jewish identity that I've been so proud to be involved with. So that is a deep passion of mine. That was a tiny side hustle that's turned into a huge side hustle of producing, but I think so important to our culture to invest in the arts.
Amazing. So thank you, Randi, for being with us. And I'm wishing everyone like a fruitful day. And we'll continue with our program. So thank you, Randi.
Thank you so much. And I'm running to my SiriusXM show, but talk to Jared Cash, who's sitting right there. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Randi.
Good morning once again. And would like to take this opportunity to invite Robert McCooey. Morning. Good morning. Bob is the global head of capital market over here at NASDAQ. And we just, on behalf of the America-Israel Friendship League and of IsraelMapped, we wanted to just really express our sincere appreciation and gratitude for your hosting us and for this really great cooperation and partnership started several years ago, and we hope will continue going, celebrating really the Israeli industry. I know we talk a lot about Israeli high tech, but it's not just high tech. There are many other industries also, and healthcare and agriculture systems, and so many more that basically are making their way. And we really, so celebrating them over here at NASDAQ. I know that, any entrepreneur, basically, their ultimate goal is to actually end up over here. And so we'll hope to continue with this partnership for many, many more years to come. And what we wanted to do is share with you this token of appreciation. Thank you. That we're giving over here. Over here at the America-Israel Friendship League, we talk a lot about bridging communities and bridging. And this is just a coin from, I believe, the 12th century that essentially is showing all the different communities. We talk about the pluralism of Israel, the different communities and religions in Israel back then, from Jerusalem with the starting with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Dome of the Rock, as well as also the Wailing Wall. And so hopefully this will just convey to you some of the bridges that we're all trying to bridge over here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Sure. Of course. Thank you.
Yeah. On behalf of myself and my 4,500 colleagues around the world, I certainly am grateful for accepting this. We have appreciated the partnership we have. We do hope it goes on for many more years in the future. I say it all the time. Entrepreneurism is not something that we as Americans own. It is a global phenomenon. It's not in Silicon Valley. It's not in Austin, Texas. It's not in Boston. It's found in Tel Aviv. It's found in Sao Paulo. It's found in Santiago, Chile, and Singapore and Suzhou and all over the world. And there's no place, I think, for the amount of people that exist, that there is more entrepreneurism and innovation than comes out of Israel every single year. So congratulations on what you do and what the organization is doing, and the really the wonderful support that you give for great entrepreneurs. We want to see so many more of them here on NASDAQ in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, welcome once again. I was going to actually welcome, I just really did, Danny referenced before how President Rivlin has made sort of the jump from Israeli politics over into the world of high tech. And I was just really wondering whether he believes that the world of Israeli politics is going to really prepare him well for dealing with venture capitalists. Coming from that world, I'm not so sure. over here, as I indicated, the America-Israel Friendship League really, we're celebrating over here our second seminar, our second conference over here at NASDAQ. And for those of you who do not know, by the way, also this session is also being streamed live as part of our bi-weekly webinars. We've been streaming webinars twice a week ever since the beginning of the pandemic, over 150 webinars, over 1.5 million views, on average, averaging over 10,000 people coming to our webinars, basically trying to stream and trying to convey what Israel is all about, trying to bridge and sort of show what the common themes are between the United States and Israel. This webinar is one of those webinars that is focusing on the world of finances. We're here over here today. We heard from Randi and from Guy. Thank you very much. And also joining us today, as we heard, is Ambassador Asaf Zamir, who has recently joined us over here in New York, and is probably going to be dealing with a lot of the companies that are making that jump, as well as also many other areas. Good luck to you. We all know this is a very tough task to be. And Ambassador Gillerman, thank you very much also for your welcome. I am really proud to be able to say that you are my partner with this. It's been an honor working with you, as well as also the rest of the staff over here of the AIFL. They're doing a tremendous job over the time. You know, we talk all the time about all these events that we're doing, the webinars, the parlor meetings, and we sometimes don't realize the hard work that goes on behind the scenes to actually organize all of those events. And there's a staff that actually does this on a daily basis. And I just really wanted to extend my personal appreciation to everyone, to all of you for doing this. And the purpose of this webinar is to talk really about, when we sort of were thinking about it, the purpose of this webinar / conference is to talk about one of the most difficult issues that are facing startups or facing companies as they grow. And that is essentially bridging that gap, the financial gap. We all, we hear a lot about the VCs, the venture capitalists, the IPOs, but coming from the world of entrepreneurship, I can tell you, it's really one of the things that if there's one thing that keeps a CEO, a founder up, it's those questions of the finances, how to bridge, how to sort of make sure that there are enough resources to assure continued growth, to assure basically that they can get to the next step without running out of money in the middle and without causing a panic and fear. And there are different phases to it. People talk about the phases starting from the angel round, going through the VC, the venture capital round, as well as also and once they get to the capital, once they get to the commercialization, companies then go into the world of go into the second round of financing, and then they go into the private equity, where ultimately their ultimate goal is either the exit or the IPO. Very similar, actually, when you think about it, that's also, you can actually map those areas and map those different phases around the Israeli economy as well. People talk back in the 2000s, people were talking about startup nation. A phrase I believe was coined at the time by then President Peres, if I'm not mistaken, talking about how all these startups are coming out of Israel. And you can look at Israel before the year 2000, the 1980s, 1990s, and that was really sort of more the angel round, where there's a lot of things that were coming out, but it really didn't sort of mature into that world of the VCs. And with Startup Nation, obviously, you can sort of, and there was a lot of venture capital. And today, Israel has sort of matured. It's gone up to a next level, I would probably say. It's now at the stage of growth capital, very similar to what we would call of growth capital. And really what we're seeing, and this is evidenced by all those companies that, a few years ago were startups, and now all of a sudden we're hearing about all these unicorns and all these companies that are doing all these IPOs. While we talk about all these phases of funding and financing for that you can track the growth of a company, very similarly, we can probably say that Israel is sort of following those kind of trends. And very similarly, the entrepreneur basically is trying to evaluate and understand how to jump from one phase to the other. So we were fortunate before to hear from Randi about that sort of early phase. And we have some other high-tech industry leaders that are with us today that will hear about their stories about going through those different phases of the corporate funding. And but before we continue, I would like to invite our next speaker over here, Ambassador Zamil.
Good morning, everyone. Very excited to be here. I think coming from Tel Aviv, the best way to explain the difference between the beginning of the startup nation and its current situation is that a legitimate conversation in Tel Aviv today would be, do you see that guy? He's a unicorn. And the answer is, how big a unicorn? It's not, it's growing so fast and developing so fast that it really is phenomenal. And when I finished my public service a few months ago in the Knesset and didn't run for re-election, I had to choose what to do with myself. And I met my friend Yoel Esteron, and I told him in the street, I said, I looked all over and I decided I'm going into venture capitalism. I ordered a book on Amazon. It's called Venture Deals. It's the 4th edition. I read it at night. I joined a firm for an hour and a half. I started doing the rounds. And then I got a telephone from my friend, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yair Lapid, that said, how is your new chapter in life? And I said, I miss my old one. And he said, oh, then I have a request. I want you to go to New York. And I've been here for a month. And it's truly a humbling month. So I'm very, very happy to be here. Thank you, Ambassador Gillerman. Thank you, Jonathan, my dear friend, Ammon Neubach of many years, Guy Franklin, and of course, our president, who really was a beloved president. We're all here today to celebrate Israel Day at NASDAQ, which is, for me, something, as the Consul General, that it's important to emphasize we do not take for granted. We do not take for granted any cooperation these days that can strengthen publicly the relationship between Israel and the United States. And we are fully devoted to invest in that relationship anywhere we can. And I spoke yesterday at a Kalkalist event, and we have the event this evening and also today, and they're all around the same idea, which is the potential of the shared interests in economies, in high tech, between Israel and between United States, and between the United States, is maybe the greatest potential of showcasing all that is amazing in these two countries and all that is positive in these two countries. And if we look at some of the challenges that the world is facing today, in the modern world, or the liberal world, the advanced world, these are all challenges that can be met through these industries and through cooperation in these industries. If it's globalization or climate change, social gaps, or the right for equal education, all of these things are things that the true dynamics of and the true potential advancement of can be met through this cooperation. So I'm very, very excited just of the opportunity to be here this morning. I hope this is just the first and the beginning. I want to thank everyone here that contributed to it, and of course our friends in NASDAQ. And I hope to be here next year again on Israel Day. Thank you very, very much.
This day would probably not be possible. Is the microphone working? Okay. Never know from this side of the microphone. This day probably would not be possible without the close cooperation with a very dear friend of the organization for many, many years, person who has led, who has followed many of the industries and many of the companies in Israel as they sort of traversed the ocean and sort of made their first mark over in Tel Aviv and the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange before they stepped over and made the jump. Somebody, a friend of the organization that has also led the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange for many, many years. I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Ammon Neubach.
Good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. As a matter of fact, for me, it's a very interesting movement point and a time because just about 2 months ago, I finished my job at Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, but I can tell you that the relationship, even on a personal level, on the institutional level, between NASDAQ and Tel Aviv, it was very, very strong. And I can tell you that we had an instant discussion between us and NASDAQ about everything. And in a few cases that maybe it's not the time yet to talk, they even support us. I'm talking about Tel Aviv Stock Exchange in some of the international events when somebody didn't want to invite us to Arab country to be there in the conference. And our friends here were insisted if we were not invited, the meeting will not take place there. So it is a very strong relationship. And I have to say there is one person that is not here. I hope that he will be at the evening. I'm talking about Sandy Frucher, that he is really true friends of Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, as well as very important person in NASDAQ. I just would like to say a word about the relationship. It's all come because of the law in Israel that was approved about more than 20 years ago that will allow the companies to be dual listing in Israel as in NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. And that was the beginning of the relationship between the two stock exchanges. And then, of course, the personal level was very, very important. So all I can say that I hope that this kind of relationship will continue in the future. There is no competition between NASDAQ and Tel Aviv Stock Exchange because there are two kinds of stock exchanges that complement each other. And we see just the benefit of some companies that first listing in Israel and then move to NASDAQ. I think it's good for the companies, for the startup, and for the capital market in Israel. I don't know about NASDAQ because we are not so big. Maybe we are very important, but we have to put it in the right proportion. So all I can say that I really appreciate the relationship between Tel Aviv Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. I think it is important for us as well as for the guys in NASDAQ. I hope it will continue for the next many years. Thank you very much. Hope that you have a great conference.
Hi, and good morning again, everyone. Ambassador Asaf Zamir, good luck in your new role. We are all here to help you in anything you need from us. Ambassador Gillerman, Amnon Neubach, dear guests, great to have you, all of you with us. Now we will hear from 4 Israeli entrepreneurs that are based here in New York. When I moved to New York 7 years ago, I moved 10 years ago, but 7 years ago, I decided to build a platform that will map the Israeli startups ecosystem in New York. And there were only 56 Israeli startups in the city. Fast forward, there are over 350 Israeli startups, almost around 400 Israeli startups, and the number keeps growing every day, I would say. Today, we will hear from 4 of them. I would like to invite the first one, Michael Waitblatt. And while he's coming to the stage, I will just say that, and I don't know if Michael remember it, I met Michael 9 years ago in a conference not far from here. He was used to work at Pango, and he told me that he's going to quit and to establish a new company. And since then, he's valued at $3 billion last round. I guess now it's more. The company. Hi. Can you share with us the cap table? We'll see exactly what's your percentage. Yeah, exactly. So without further ado, as Michael has to leave us early, I would like to invite Michael, CEO and co-founder of Forter. Michael.
Actually do anything? Okay, awesome. Yeah, so we started Forter, as Guy mentioned, about 8 years ago, but I've actually been in the bad guy protection space for about 20 years, maybe even more, maybe even before the army. At the time, you would do something and get a t-shirt as a reward. You remember this? Working in the Israeli Cyber Command, serving the Israeli Cyber Command. What? Not gonna work. So how am I changing slides? I'm gonna wave. Okay. When we started Forter, or actually to your earlier point about going from Startup Nation to Scale Up Nation, there's a book called Startup Nation that was written in 2008 or 2009. And the first company that book talks about is Fraud Sciences, which was a huge, at the time, exit, $170 million. We beat PayPal in a POC. They rushed to buy the company right away. But that was a missed opportunity because we had the best tech in the world and then someone bought it and used it for internal purposes. And about 5 years later, together with a few of my one friend from high school and other friends from that we worked together in that same company, we decided to actually make it proper this time. We looked at the e-commerce is way bigger. If you actually change to the next slide, e-commerce is way bigger than, well, definitely than it was in 2008 and before. It's definitely obvious now. Can you change to the next slide? It's definitely bigger now than it was when we started in 2013. And a lot of the time when people talk about e-commerce, right, they think retailers selling online, right? Nordstrom, but .com. But e-commerce is actually substantially bigger than that, right? Every interaction that you're doing online has with some monetary value, right? It can be, here's a credit card, I want to buy something, but it can be logging into your, I don't know, Hilton Autos account because you want to book a hotel with points, redeeming some refund value that you got before. Every type of that interaction. When you walk into a store and you use Apple Pay, right? That's e-commerce. And it's so much bigger and it's growing so fast, the numbers almost don't matter anymore. It's obvious for everyone that it's big. If you move to the next slide, it's going to be a weird interaction. You realize that e-commerce companies are not just trying to go after the transaction, right? They're building relationship with their consumers. It's everything around the constant interaction. And once there's like a huge fight, even if you don't compete with Amazon on product, or you don't compete with Uber or Netflix, you compete with them on consumer expectation. I remember I walked into a store here and I wanted to buy a couch, and I was genuinely surprised that the shipping wasn't free in next day, right? Yes, they have to assemble it. Like there's a truck, there's a whole process. And the fact that every time you need to pay online, it doesn't work like an Uber. This is what I want, and then the payment is settled somehow, and you don't even remember that it's happening, right? Those relationships are becoming substantially more complex. Everything has to be real time, freedom of choice for everyone, right? That's great. That's actually not what we do. But if you look behind that, and if you go to the next slide, there is a lot of fraudulent activity, and fraudsters are incredibly tech savvy, right? Definitely more than any retailer, including Amazon in that space. And they will always slip through the cracks. I'm sure Dean after me will talk about how they get the data and the fact that pretty much all of you should assume that all of your personal information, your credit cards, your social security and whatever is really easily accessible and people can use it. And then they can shop at Nordstrom or book funnel drugs with your credit cards over Uber. Very easy stuff that you can do that. But a lot of the time what people focus on in that conversation is how many bad guys exist, how much money is being stolen, which is, I don't know, tens of billions. Not interesting. What's interesting is the impact to the genuine consumers that is caused by all of these walls and layers of protections that were, like, I'm sure when you've shopped around, you try to do something and they say, well, there's something wrong with your card, try again. You get a verification text from your bank, but it's on the phone and you're shopping using your computer, or your spouse is using your card, or whatever is happening, and then it doesn't work. And the impact of that is there's over $600 billion, I'll repeat, $600 billion of transactions that never happen because someone along that chain decided that they're too risky and they were completely legitimate. That's bigger than Amazon. So if you go to the next slide, when we started the company, we realized that we needed to build a fully automated solution for enterprises, because this is where e-commerce is happening, right? 90% of US e-commerce is done by the top 1,000 companies, but actually over 2/3 of US e-commerce is done by only 10. And when we started, and Guy asked me to talk about funding, everyone told me, no, you're crazy. I've talked to seed investors. They said, we called all of these large retailers. They will never outsource their risk decisions to a third party at all, and definitely not to a startup. Maybe they'll do it with Visa or whatever. And then at the time, Visa bought some company for $2 billion doing exactly that. Well, fast forward 8 years, we're now working with 3 of the top 7 largest retailers in the US. I can't name them, but you can guess. And on top of that, some other nice brands that you can see here. We're currently protecting over $250 billion worth of e-commerce, which, as a fun fact, was more than all of e-commerce in the US when we started, right? Just to show you how big it is. And in today's, like if you remember my first number early on, that's about 1.5% of all of global e-commerce. So there's still a long road for us to go. If you go to the next slide, just kind of giving you a short overview of what we actually do. So we've built a system that reviews all of these digital interactions between consumers and companies. And in real time can provide the retailers a very simple, you can trust this person or you cannot trust this person, depending on what they're trying to do. People are not necessarily good or bad. It's very weird that some people will commit fraud all the time doing this thing, but then they'll be straight as an error doing something else. And we leave it up to our customers, the retailers, to decide what type of policy or what kind of consumers they want to engage with. And what it leads to is about 90% reduction in fraud, but it's more importantly, about 85% reduction in false positives, right? That's 600 billion. So we're helping them recoup about 500 out of it. If you go to the next slide, actually skip that slide because I know we're running a little late. Blah, 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 we're the best. Move on to the next one. The interesting thing here is there's a very, very natural virtual cycle here. The more customers we have, the more data we get to see, right? The more consumers we know, the better the system performs, the more accurate it is in catching and distinguishing between fraud and not fraud. And the more products we can build, and then the more customers we get, and on and on and on. And at this stage, we can, in an instance, in about 200 or 300 milliseconds, properly authenticate over 1 billion consumers, right? That's more than what PayPal or Shopify or Amazon know combined, because we can work with everyone. We're independent. We'll always remain independent. That was the goal from day one. I still carry that chip on the shoulder from the PayPal acquisition, which was great for them at the time, but just not what we're looking for. And in this scenario, right, we can make better experiences and really make sure that the entire ecosystem is built on the same trust that you would experience as a regular consumer walking into the same store that you do every day. And one really important element for us is when you think about who is actually being excluded, right? Who is being constantly declined, right? It's not us sitting here doing everything on Amazon and shipping it to New York. It's the people in Africa, or it's the people in East Baltimore, right? If you look at the rules, they're the ones that they don't have a Walmart necessarily next to them to go to. They try to go online and then it doesn't work. So when we analyzed our data last year, we've seen that we've enabled over $4 billion of transactions from previously excluded populations, just because we were able to make it substantially more accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And the next speaker, it's Hani Goldstein from Snappy. Hani is one out of the 35 Israeli women founders here in New York, the Israeli women founders here in New York. And by the way, we have in the room more Israeli founders that are women, like from Woodspoon and the Institute and Innovesta, and I guess I covered all of them. And as I met Michael before he founded the company, I met Hani when she was the first employee in New York. How many employees do you have now? 200. So I met Hani when she was the only one, and it's great to see the growth of the company. And what is interesting to see is that Snappy, the company that Hani founded, has been named the fastest growing company in the New York region in 2020. Not only from the Israeli startups, from the all New York tech ecosystem. So that's an amazing achievement. And also the 15th, yeah, if we can tell that. And also the 15th fastest growing company in America. So without further ado, Hani Goldstein, founder of Snappy.
Now? Yes. Thank you, Guy, for all the kind words. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for having me today. Very excited to be here. So I'm Hani Goldstein, co-founder and CEO of Snappy. Snappy is a gifting platform that takes away all the friction from the process of giving gifts, turns it into a one-click experience for the gift giver and a fun and special experience for the gift recipient. Our vision is to become the leading gifting platform worldwide and to spread smiles across the world. Today, I'll walk you through our journey, how we managed to grow the company 11,000% in the last 3 years with 1,500 customers. And we cover about 30% of the Fortune 100 companies. Sent today 1.5 million gifts through the platform, raised $100 million, and we just grew our team from 120 employees to 250 in the past 6 months. So you can imagine how fun it is. But let's take a step back and speak a little bit about the gifting market, which is a very interesting market. It's a $600 billion market in the US alone, where 240 billion about is corporate gifts and the rest is consumer gifts. Snappy is currently focused in the US and targeting corporates, but the platform is built to scale and designed to also serve consumers in the future, and that's part of the strategy. And although this market is massive, it's actually $1 trillion worldwide, it's not very innovative, and there wasn't a lot of technology up to now into it. So as you can all imagine, holidays are coming, finding a gift is still very hard. You don't know where to buy a gift, what to buy, where to ship it, and just lots of friction in that process. To give you some numbers, there's about $100 billion of gift returns every year, just in the holidays, just in the US. So obviously not a very efficient process because after all this, the gift recipients don't really like the gifts they get. And then lots of people turn into gift cards, which are easy solution, but very transactional. And also in the end, about 50% say they don't even redeem those. So what we wanted to do is really take this and make it a seamless process. And when you think about how enterprise need to deal with this problem, it gets to be even harder. There is lots of, let's take a multinational company that has about 70 locations worldwide. They would have to source in each location, procurement, legal, privacy, compliance. That's not including all the inventory that they have to have and make sure that everyone has a great experience. And trust me, it's 10 times harder than just getting one gift. And so we wanted to really take this process, streamline it, make it really fun and easy for the gift givers and also for the people who receive the gifts. And we do it really, really well, especially at scale, when you want to make sure the experience is super personalized and fun, but also super easy. So if we look at the product, there's 3 main pillars for the product. One is the enterprise system, the second is magical experiences, and the third is a marketplace. The enterprise system basically allow any customer to go in, track their gifts, manage their budgets, send anything customized, get feedback from people, and kind of oversee the entire program. The magical experience is where the fun happens, where there's fun games that before you reveal the gift, personalized greetings and experiences, videos, everyone can customize their own process. And the last part is the marketplace where we connect to lots of different sellers that offer subscriptions, products, just regular fun cakes and things like that. and pretty much anything in the world. Could even be a trip to Mexico. And this is how it works from the recipient side. So if you get a gift, you could get an email or text message or a link, and then you click on the button. You can scratch off the screen or some other fun experience to reveal the gift. And then you can choose from many different options. And the only thing you need to do is pick the gift you like most. It gets delivered to your doorstep. By the way, Guy, you can see here this address. I don't know if you noticed how old this is. No, this is your Sosa. Yeah. And what's interesting is that although it seems like a really seamless, fun, simple experience on the front end, in order to power all of this magic, there is a very sophisticated technological backend that's integrated to many platforms. Like for payroll, we connect to ADP, Slack, so people can kind of send gifts through their different apps that they're using, as well as connect to over 200 retailers and sellers that supply the gifts, and lots of operational work in order to make this happen, because in the end of the day, it's physical products that move from one place to the other. So in the past 2 years, we've signed lots of very large companies. What's interesting to see is that really every company from big and small has a need for this service, and it really fits well for them. So you can see companies from tech, from hospitality, healthcare, pest control, really anything you can imagine. We serve today over 100 different industries, and each one of it makes it their own. And what we're proud of most is really the amazing customer satisfaction, over 250,000 five-star reviews from people who enjoyed their gifts. This also reflects in the massive customer base that's growing. Today we have about over 1,500 customers, and you can see in the last 16 quarters, consistent growth of adding more and more customers, very low logo churn, so massive retention, which is also reflected in our cohorts. So every cohort builds on top of the prior cohorts, creating sustainable growth for the future, and really establishing our customer base to expand and to use Snappy more. If we look at our history of how we were able to fuel this company to date, started, as Guy mentioned, when I found him, when I met him, was our seed round, 1.5 million. We were 4 people back then. And then a year after, we continued to raise our A round. We doubled the team. And in the past year or so, we raised $90 million in 2 rounds, and today are 250 employees. So what's next for Snappy? As much as we love scaling our current solution and it's working great, we're also working on really creating that vision of a one-stop shop for gifting. So anyone who wants to send a gift any place in the world, right now you don't know where to go, and you should come to Snappy, and really this should fulfill all of your needs. So enhancing our systems to be able to connect to any platform that you work with, our marketplace, so you'll have Snappy Eat, Snappy Fly, Snappy Learn, and Snappy Give, really anything, any product that you want to send. And our Snappy Studio to add additional fun experiences like AR, additional games and things like that. But the true vision of the company is really to unlock the network effect of adding recipients and to become gift givers. So basically every person who gets a gift will be able to send gifts to their friends and family. And this is just to say thank you to NASDAQ that helped us many times to featured us on the tower. So thanks for the opportunity to be here today. Really appreciate it, and have a great day.
Before we continue, I want to acknowledge Yoel Esteron that is here with us today, and Sophie and Galit. This week we had Kalkalist conference, and I want to say it was amazing. And also Nimrod Kozlovsky, who handled the conference and did an amazing job. So thank you for another amazing conference. The next startup started at 2012, and one of the founders actually came with me almost on the same plane to New York. And I'm talking about Bizzabo. and Eran, the CEO, with us today. Eran co-founded Bizzabo in 2012, an all-in-one event success platform that enables in-person, virtual, and hybrid events to deliver unique attendee experiences that drive key business outcome through intelligent and intent-based personalized engagement. What is nice to see in recent years is that Israeli startups, as opposed to look and being acquired, they start and acquire smaller startups. And Bizzabo is one example, and I think just last week you acquired another Israeli startup. So I guess you will tell all about it. So I would like to invite Eran Ben-Shushan from Bizzabo.
We can go one back. Okay, can you hear me now? Excellent. Yeah, we can go one slide back, and if the clicker is not going to work, I'm just going to instruct for the next slides. But good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, everyone. I'm really honored to be here, and it's exciting to present Bizzabo to you. We're in the business of events, and we're all about bringing people together, which has fundamentally changed in the last year and a half, too, since COVID. And we went through a pretty exceptional journey, and we do think that the world is actually going through a remarkable journey that we are privileged to be in the center of in many ways. So the world, and if we can go one slide back, please, the world that we're in right now. Yeah, let's give it a shot. Maybe. We'll stay patient for a few more seconds, and if not, I'm going to do it without slides. It's a shame, there are beautiful slides, but in any case, should I wait or should we go? Okay, we'll wait 20 seconds. Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit, I'll go freestyle without the slides. Basically, the world that we're at right now, as we see it, is very much a hybrid world. And that means that whether we're going on our Peloton and using or hailing using an Uber, or using social networks, or using Amazon to get groceries, basically the world has become completely hybrid. The way we intersect with physical and digital in today's world has changed fundamentally. The one industry, there are a few, but one that haven't changed at all in that sense is the events industry. And I'm talking specifically about corporate events and events of the likes that we're in today. And we do believe that the human experience or the human behavior is today changing fundamentally. So what we did with Bizzabo prior to COVID, we were a company that was doing only in-person events like the event that we are today. A year and a half ago, together with the rest of the world, with social distancing and everything else that happened in the world, we were forced to transition to virtual events. That started as a very scary experience for us as a company because events basically shut down that moment and we couldn't run any more events on our platform. What the Bizzabo team was able to do was a pretty incredible pivot, and within 3 weeks, we were able to launch to the market a virtual offering to events. And we basically connected a lot of video solutions to the existing solution that we had. And with that, we launched to the market and we saw quite explosive growth in 2020. At the end of 2020, we raised a big round of capital. And in 2021, we basically started reimagining the future of events and the future of how people are going to be gathering and how we're going to use technology in the physical world of events when we come together. And today, I'm very proud to say that Bizzabo is a company of 370 employees. We raised in total $194 million. Our funding story is pretty interesting. We started by raising the first $15 million across around 7 years, in multiple rounds from mostly micro VCs and angel investors. Then around 6 years ago, I moved here to New York and started building also a network of investors here in the US. And we raised our first institutional round from a VC that was US based, Pilot Equity Growth. Later on, a year and a half after, with more growth and more enterprise organizations working with us. And I'm talking about companies, so we sell to organizations like Salesforce, Amazon, Bloomberg, and even companies like Lululemon. Every company at certain size is running events, and they're using our platform and software to power their events. And once we started seeing more growth in the enterprise segment, we raised a $15 million round from that US-based VC. Later on, later on, we got also Viola Growth to invest in the company, our Series D of $27 million. We have here one representative, a partner from Viola. And that was actually thanks to having a local partner of Viola who was posted here in the US, Rafi Carmeli. I'm not sure that without Rafi being here present, we would actually raise capital from Viola. So if we're speaking about raising capital and journeys that Israeli startups go through in the context of fundraising and going public and so forth, I do think that there is importance to being here and being present. And that's what led to that round to come to fruition. And later on, late last year, we raised $138 million from Insight Partners, who's one of the most prominent investors, specifically in our space, in event software. They've invested in the pre-IPO round of our incumbent. And with that, we started scaling really rapidly this year. And we've acquired in the past 6 months, we've acquired 4 companies. We doubled the company from 160 employees at the beginning of the year to 380. We're basically doubling revenue on average in the last 3 years. And we do believe that the future of how people are coming together and how they're interacting with each other at events is going to be completely revolutionized. And this is the mission that we're after. So sorry for not having the slides. We might have an opportunity to do it at another time. But I do hope, excuse me, that this gives you some good visibility into what Bizzabo does and our journey and our passion to bringing people together and making hybrid events better for everyone. So thank you very much.
CEO and co-founder of Axonius. And Dean, it's like a coincidence that Dean, Hani, and Michael was the beginning. I met all of them when they were like only the first employee here in New York. Dean was sitting in Regis. It's like an office for lawyers from the 70s, something like that. And I took him to sit with me. I was back then the CEO of Sosa New York, and I took Dean to Sosa. Hani was also the first employee in Snappy. She was based at this innovation hub that I was running. And since then, amazing growth in just like 3-4 years. So without further ado, Dean Sysman, CEO and co-founder of Axonius. Dean.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, I had blood stains on the carpet before I moved to Sosa. So Sosa was definitely an upgrade back then. And that was the first office we had employees in New York. So this is us, the three founders of Axonius. Axonius is a cybersecurity company. You've probably all heard of the growth of cyber. And I'm going to tell you about why cyber is growing so much and how to make sense of all the crazy things happening there. And this is sort of that cliched story. If you've heard of companies like Checkpoint, Palo Alto Networks, and Perva, they're all the same story. A few founders from the intelligence core in Israel starting a company. This is what we do, which I'll get back to later on, but this is us winning the award for best cybersecurity startup in the world in 2019. And a CISO of Fortune 500s told us that we've been solving a problem that he has not seen solved in 20 to 30 years. This is some of our metrics. You saw some very impressive metrics from Snappy. This is not a mistake, right? We are the fastest growing cybersecurity company by revenue in history based on every comparable we can find. And as you can tell from the people, the customers, and the funding, things are growing really, really fast, right? Why are we growing this fast? For two reasons: the market and the customer experience. If you look at that NPS score, I don't know how many of you are familiar with NPS. It's a score to say how much would a customer recommend your product to other people. 78 is the highest we have ever seen in B2B software, let alone cyber. The best cybersecurity companies have an NPS score of around 50, meaning our customers love us. They don't like us. They don't want us. They love us, okay? And this is the reason, right? We're solving a very, very deep and painful problem that started out with me working for one of the largest companies in the world and finding the Chinese government inside their network, which is a story I'll tell about right now. So after leaving the intelligence core, I was the CTO and co-founder of my previous startup, and we were called in to work with one of the biggest companies in the world. We were in their headquarters in Midwest, and we were trying to find out if somebody had hacked their network. And after a couple of days of putting in traps that were meant to be stepped on when an attacker is there, we started discovering somebody interacting with one of those traps. And we look at the forensics of what they were doing. It was very obvious. They were a very well-known group from the Chinese government that were operating inside that network. When I came to the team that I was working with and told them about it, they seemed not that excited. And they said, well, okay, great, but what do we do now? And I told them, look, the attack is coming from a computer inside your network. Here's its address, here's its name. Let's go research this computer and understand what the attackers are doing. And they told me, yeah, we have no idea why this computer is in our network. And I was very shocked. I told them, this is your network, right? This is a machine, this looks like a workstation, some employees working from it. But they told us, yeah, we don't know everything that's on our network. We have no idea. Now, this is one of the most well-funded cybersecurity teams in the world that when we were working with them, were looking to buy a very luxurious, sort of cybersecurity tool. It was the Ferrari of cybersecurity, right? But they didn't even know what was on their network. How do you secure something you're not aware of or don't know about? And that was the problem that we set out to solve, which the industry calls asset management, or what we call cybersecurity asset management. And essentially, when we go to organizations, we ask them, how many devices do you have? Like that organization I was with, their answer was, we have between 1.5 to 3 million devices. And I said, well, look, that's quite an answer, because not judging, but doesn't that mean you don't know? And they said, no, networks are very dynamic, things come in and out all the time. And I gave them the example of finance. Finance, there's money coming in and out all the time. But if you go to a CFO and you ask them, how much money do we have? And they will say between 1.5 to $3 billion. You're very concerned about where's that other $1.5 billion at, right? So this is what we solve for organizations from the day we started. The reason for our growth has been that we solve one of the most fundamental problems in cybersecurity. And we help organizations with everything else that they're doing. It really doesn't work well unless they solve this fundamental problem first of understanding what they have and how to manage those things. Now, people ask me all the time, why are there so many cybersecurity companies, right? This is the clue. Because if you think about the way people are using technology today, imagine driving a really fast car around the track, right? Let's say we're driving a Ferrari. That engine is what gives us the speed and what gives us to go fast around the track. But in order to do that, we really have to have very, very strong brakes, right? Like nobody would take a Ferrari that has a braking system from a Toyota Camry because that's dangerous. But that's exactly what organizations ended up doing today. That engine is the use of technology, and the more technology you use, the faster you can go. But cybersecurity is that braking system that allows you to utilize that technology effectively and securely. So organizations today are pushing towards having Ferrari engines, but they still have Toyota braking systems. And that's why we're going to continue to see so many hacks. We're going to see so many cybersecurity companies continue to grow like this and go public. And obviously, now that we're in a post-COVID world, that's becoming more and more important. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. So I would like to thank Dean, Hani, Eran, and Michael for their presentations. And I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. Thank you. We didn't finish yet. All of us are going now outside of Times Square. We will go together to pictures with the Jumbotron, with pictures from the morning from the studio on the big board. So I'm inviting all of you. Let's go together, and at 12:10, we have like 10 minutes to go there, and we'll all of us meet there in 10 minutes. Thank you, everyone.